The Sailor Pro Gear is a large cigar-shaped fountain pen with flat finials. It's available in a wide variety of colors. I have this one in what's called Imperial Black, which is a matte black finish with gunmetal accents. The top finial features the Sailor logo, which is an anchor inset with a black background. And then we have a gunmetal band separating it from the cap with a matching clip that is bent metal, and it's springy and functional. The cap has a tapering profile widening down to a pretty thick cap band, which reads Sailor, Japan, founded 1911. The cap unscrews in 1 and about 3/4 of a turn to reveal a fully exposed 21 karat gold nib. This one is colored black to match the rest of the finish of the pen. It features scroll work on the outside, the Anchor logo, 21K 875, denoting an 87.5% gold content. And on the side, it reads M for medium. And on the back, we can see the black plastic feed with the inlet to draw ink towards the tip of the nib, which is really great to see. That means you don't have to submerge this nib very deeply in ink to be able to draw it into the pen. The section starts with a flare-up, and then it has a tapering profile to a gunmetal band, followed by threads, which are low profile and smooth to the touch. And then we have 2 step ups to the barrel. And the barrel has a gradual taper that thins down to another gunmetal band, followed by the end finial. In the hand, the pen is well balanced and lightweight, and it's a decent length for long writing sessions, although I think if you have larger hands, it may be a little bit too small. But luckily, the cap posts securely and deeply. It transfers the weight just about to the crook of my hand, making for a very comfortable pen to use when posted. In terms of size comparisons, here's the Sailor Pro Gear, a typical Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and your standard Sharpie. Before we get into the disassembly of the Sailor Pro Gear, I wanted to take a moment here to compare it with a few other fountain pens. Up top, we have the Lamy 2000, which is another matte black fountain pen with flat finials. And this one features a brushed stainless steel clip, which is spring-loaded. And unlike the Pro Gear, the Lamy 2000 has a brushed finish instead of just being matte black. Below that, we have the Sailor Realo, which is the only piston-filling fountain pen that Sailor makes. You can see a lot of the styling is very similar to the Pro Gear, and probably the largest difference being the cap band is 2 pieces. We have an ink window, which is very useful to have in piston fillers. And also the finial does taper down to a smaller point. And then at the bottom, we have the Jinhao 82, which is very similar to the Pro Gear Slim. I don't currently have that model, so this is a decent stand-in, at least for this video. And you can see it's just slightly smaller and thinner than its bigger sibling. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps removed. All caps, with the exception of the Lamy 2000, unscrew. The Lamy 2000 has a pull-off cap. And in their uncapped forms, the proportions of the pens are pretty much identical, with the smallest being the Jinhao 82 and the longest being the Lamy 2000. Let's take a closer look at these nibs and sections. All pens, with the exception of the Jinhao 82, have gold nibs. The Jinhao features a stainless steel nib, but it's important to note the Pro Gear Slim that this is standing in for features a 14 karat gold nib. Both of the Sailors have 21 karat gold nibs, and the Lamy has a 14 karat gold nib. Also, the Lamy is the only one that is not a fully exposed nib. This nib is considered semi-hooded, and it has a grip section that tapers smoothly back to the barrel. The rest of these pens have grip sections that are pretty traditional in shape, that start with a flare-up, followed by a tapering profile to a metal band, and then threads that are smooth to the touch. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps posted. All caps post securely and deeply, and in their posted form, the Jinhao 82 is still the shortest pen, working its way up to the Lamy 2000 being the longest. To disassemble the Sailor Pro Gear, no tools are required, but gripping materials might be useful to have. The cap unscrews from the pen, and if we take a look inside, we can see towards the bottom there is a plastic cap liner That appears to be friction fit, so I don't recommend removing it on a regular basis. If you want to clean this cap, I would just run it under warm water or maybe soak it with a bit of mild detergent. The barrel unscrews from the grip section. And then we can see a converter. I purchased this one separately. I was a bit surprised during the unboxing to see that one wasn't included. That converter just pulls right off. And if you want to disassemble this, simply unscrew the back sleeve. That'll come off. And in this case, the piston knob came with it. And then we can pull the rod out. And on that rod, we can see a collar. If you want, you can take the collar off, but I find that one has a way of running away, so I'm gonna leave it on. And then for the grip section, the nib and feed appear to be held inside a nib collar, but I can't get that nib collar to come out, so I find it's easiest just to grab some gripping materials and pull the nib and feed straight out. And then those two can be separated just like that. And the pen is fully disassembled. In order to reassemble, I'm going to start with the converter. The piston rod and that little sleeve, the white one, goes right into the back. And then you can screw the piston knob down onto the rod. And then the sleeve itself has one end that's threaded and one that's not. The threaded end goes towards the chamber and just gets screwed down. And just like that, the converter is fully functional. Next, let's grab our nib and our feed. The nib hugs the feed on its top, and towards the back there's a ridge that prevents the nib from traveling too far down. And then there appears to be a slight key on this grip section. It's not easy to photograph or really see. So what I tend to do is I place the feed on the grip section and give it a turn until I feel it kind of lock in place. Once it reaches that point, I just slide it in. And again, the back of the feed has that ridge, so you can't slide the nib too far down. So that looks just about perfect. We'll reattach our converter, followed by our barrel. And then lastly, our cap. And now we're ready to ink up. Inking up the Sailor Pro gear, today I selected an ink also by Sailor. This is called Shiguri, which is a very deep purple, almost like a plum color. Take the cap off the bottle and the pen. Remove the barrel. Make sure the piston and the converter is extended all the way down. In this case, it already is. Submerge the nib into the ink and rotate the piston knob to draw up ink. In order to get a full fill, I'm going to expel ink and then draw it up one last time. That looks like a good full fill. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the nib. Put the barrel back on the pen. Followed by the cap. And also cap up the bottle of ink. And we're ready to write. Okay, right in with the Sailor Pro gear. Cap unscrews, and I am going to post it. And today we have a 21 karat medium nib. And it is a wet flowing nib with a decent amount of bounce, but it also has quite a bit of tooth, and it feels very similar to writing with an extra fine nib. Our ink is Sailor gory. For flex, like I said, the nib does have a bit of bounce to it, and that translates to a decent amount of line variation. I wouldn't quite call it a flex nib, but I would say it's pretty soft. And for reverse writing, scratchy and very thin. But the feed honestly kept up pretty well. It was a little bit painful to do, so I wouldn't recommend this. You could, of course, just go a little bit heavier for a thicker line. Not my favorite reverse writer. So, what do I think of the Sailor Pro Gear? I find it to be a very comfortable and attractive pen. I like writing with this pen both unposted as well as posted. I find that both are equally comfortable. The finish, even though the pen is mostly made out of plastic, is very high quality. It's very consistent. You don't see any real lines or imperfections. And it feels quite nice to the hand. It gives you good grip. And also the nib is a real fun nib to use. It's soft and flexible and gives you nice character lines. But I do have quite a few issues with this pen, and honestly, the largest one is with this nib. For me, the medium nib is just a little bit too toothy. It feels, like I mentioned, like writing with an extra fine pen. And I don't mind the toothiness feel of an extra fine pen, but when I'm choosing a wider line like a medium, I expect it to be a bit more smooth. So unfortunately, I'm not a really big fan of this pen, and I'm probably not going to keep it in my collection. The other issues that I have with this pen, I do think that there's an excessive number of turns to be able to unscrew the barrel. I haven't counted them, but you can see that it's quite a few. And honestly, the quality of the threads don't feel great. Here we're dealing with a plastic thread going into a metal mate, and you can feel it kind of grinding away. But also when I cap this pen, it feels smooth until I get towards the bottom of it, and then I actually can feel the cap liner engage. And I don't believe it's a spring-loaded cap liner. I think it's just adding a little bit of interference. So you can kind of feel that extra push at the end, which some people might like because it gives them some positive reassurance that they sealed the pen. But personally, I feel like it's just tolerances not stacking up properly. And then my other big issue with this pen is the fact that it costs so much money, and yet it did not come with a converter. To me, that is honestly a little bit atrocious for Sailor to nickel and dime you to that extent. I don't know, of course, how expensive it costs to make this nib, and it is a beautiful nib, even though it's not polished the way that I would prefer. But throw in a converter that only costs $10 and allow people to fill up their pens with their favorite bottle of ink. That shouldn't be that much to ask for. Recently, Sailor released the Tootsie, which is a very economical pen. It's under 40 US dollars, and even that one includes a converter. So it shouldn't be asking too much for this one to also have one as well. But with all that being said, I do see a lot of value in this pen. It's comfortable, as I mentioned. If you do like a toothy feel, this one definitely fits the bill. And it's available in a lot of different colors. I know many people like to mix and match their pens with their ink, and they like more flamboyant colors. So this one should really speak to you. And overall, I do think it's quite an attractive pen, both posted and unposted. So I think there's a lot of merit to this pen. Unfortunately, I don't think this is one for me, but I could see many people enjoying it. And that just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.